Let them wait.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Laptop Seniors. Today is another in a series about places in Panama that people talk about all the time, and there's a lot of videos on YouTube about them, and we wanted to see them, and get our initial impression. So this is our initial impression of today, Volcan and Cerro Punta. Now,
Cerro Punta.
thank you. I always get that wrong. I always get it wrong.
I know.
For some reason, you always want to put the O on the one and the A on the other one. They should be reversed. One of the reasons that I wanted to go to Volcan was so many people talk about Volcan, but the other reason was that it's close to Cerro Punta, and I had seen somebody's video about Cerro Punta, and and it looked really cool. It looked like a pretty neat place, and it was very, very pretty. And also, I think, one of the reasons that, people go to Panama, and certainly we were interested in Panama, is the situation around the world, which started with COVID, where all of a sudden the food supply is sort of, it's at risk. And when you look at Cerro Punta, that's where a massive amount of food comes from for Panama and also the rest of Central America. So if you want to be close to food, that's where you'd want to go. And Volcan is the next closest city to it, and it's very close. It's, it's a 20-minute drive. Pretty, if you're in a major city, you'd have to drive that far just to go to a Costco. So if you wanted to not have to worry about eating and food and always have a place to get fresh, great, cheap vegetables and fruit and stuff like that, and I'm sure meat there too, Cerro Punta is the place to be. So that's why, I wanted to go see the thing. What I'm going to do is show you the ride, the car ride, and you're going to see, right out our front windshield. We're going to ride that entire road. Almost all of it is going to be on this video, and then we're going to get to Volcan. And as you can see right now, we're on the road, and that's what you're looking at. And we'll talk a little bit about the road and about the drive and stuff like that. And then, I'm going to give you a time somewhere along this way. You'll see the time come up. Actually, I'm going to make it right here. See the time on the screen? If you jump ahead to that time on the screen, if you don't want to take the drive with us, and hear what we're talking about in the car and, the curves and all that sort of stuff, you can just jump ahead to where we start to enter the town of Volcan. So some things that, struck out to me about the drive, the first thing that really stuck out to me about the drive was that the road was really good. It was one of the best roads that I had seen in Panama. Clearly, the government of Panama or somebody has a spotlight maybe on Volcan or that region and want people to be comfortable going there, because the typical potholes and old roads and, grunge and not being wide, only a car and a half and that type of stuff, that doesn't occur here. This is a really good road. So that was awesome. And it also made it good that it was a really good road, because you're going to hit some, as you'll see here, some curves and some hills where we're going straight up. Now, we rented a RAV4, and which is a pretty decent SUV. And on a lot of these things, I had to throw that baby into low gear in order to get up the hill. That's how tall those hills were.
And she was pushing it.
And she was, and you'll hear the car really rumbling, to try to get up the hill. And it became especially apparent because a lot of times, like a lot of times, you'll be coming up the hill and it'll make a right or a left-hand turn of which you can't see around the turn. You have no idea what's coming around there. So therefore, you have to really slow down and hug the turn. So now you're hardly moving at all, hoping that somebody isn't there. And when they come around, or you get around the turn, and then you can start speeding up again, the car doesn't want to go. It's just like, yeah, you're pushing me too much. There's too much weight, too straight up, that kind of thing. So
right, because if you're taking the turn and then the road's going up the mountain after the turn, you've got to accelerate going up right after slowing down. That's tough.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And it becomes even worse when that turn is in the middle already of an upgrade, where you're already going up pretty slow. And then you have to slow down to like 10 kilometers an hour, which is almost walking. So that's one of the things that you will really, stick out to you. Also, for me, some of the things that stuck out is there's some really gorgeous, just gorgeous terrain changes where you're looking off in the distance and there's a huge hill or it turns into a mountain, and then you go a little farther and all of a sudden that mountain is right close to the road. It's very much like actually driving through West Virginia, which is another really gorgeous place.
Oh, we love that drive.
Yeah, and so did John Denver, so it got the song about it. So it's like West Virginia, only tropical. West Virginia with palm trees. That's kind of, what a lot of this will look like as you do this drive with us. That was my impression of the drive, and also not a lot of traffic. And what ends up, I thought, what you'll see on this drive here, you'll see all of a sudden I'll pull over for seemingly no reason. And that would be because somebody is behind me and they're pushing, because I don't know the road and I don't know where I'm going exactly. And there'll be like there's one instance that you'll see coming up here where there's this guy in a black pickup truck and he is right on my bumper, and he's got a really loud truck, and I'm going a decent speed, but I don't know where I'm going. So I pull over and let him go by, and you'll see him blow by me like a rocket, and then a kilometer up the road, he stopped. And you're like, really? Did you really need to do that? Dude, But anyway, so some of my impressions.
I'd like to jump in here just to take a step back for a second with an overview, if you will. So you're going to watch the road as we go along, but if you take a look at a map and see, our starting point, as Pat said, was Boquete, and from Boquete to Volcan, it's actually only 78 kilometers, which you would think, well, Canadian driving, you should be able to do that in a little over an hour. That would be good.
Yeah, that's probably about 45 miles, somewhere in there, 45, 50 miles maybe?
Even less than an hour,
yeah.
But it's a 1.5 hour drive, according to Google, roughly an hour and a half. And the interesting thing is that you cannot just drive as the crow flies, because Volcan is on the other side of Mount Baru. So we actually have to go quite a ways south towards David and then start zigzagging back up and around the mountain to get to Volcan. And I've got to tell you, if you're doing this drive, to mark on your map where there's a really lovely waterfall, but if you look up Cascada Macho de Monte, there's a lovely waterfall, and you're just going to blow by it so quickly unless you're looking for it.
I love that name, Macho. It's the Macho Fountain.
Of course you do.
The waterfall.
We went through a lot of nice areas. Pat has a wonderful way of liking where he is and where he's going better than where he's been always. And so he saw some areas in there that he's always saying, this would be a great place to live.
It was cool, yeah. A lot of
it looks
places.
so nice here.
Yeah. One other thing I should point out to you, because you might go like, oh my God, this guy's a terrible driver. Because you're going to see along here where there's curves, and clearly I can see way down the road. So I know that there is no car coming, the other direction for miles, okay? You can't tell, but I can certainly see down the road. I tend to use both lanes of a 2-lane road. I literally took a race driving course.
I was just going to say, you think you're a race car driver.
Well, no, it's not that I was race driving, but if you're a policeman and you wanted to take a course of how to drive, fast, or to how to drive more safe on curvy roads, or certainly like the race car driver course, they teach you to use both sides of the road to basically, wherever the turn is, if it's to the right, you hug the right. If it's to the left, you hug the left. So if you're making a left-hand turn and you're in the right lane, you don't want to really be in the right-hand lane way over, because centrifugal force throws you off the road. You want to be on the inside. So your whole time is trying to straighten the road out. And that's what I just find it fun to do that. I mean, I only do it, just to make sure, I only do it when there's no cars coming. I don't really care about the cars behind me. They could think I'm a terrible driver, I don't care. Because I know it's the safer way to go, actually. So there's a tip for driving.
this hugging the center lane is not hugging the center lane of two lanes going the same way. For the most part of this drive, especially along the mountain, this was one lane each way.
Yeah, well, one lane on the right, one lane on the left. I'm using both of them for as many times as I can, again, when no one's coming the other way and I know that it's super safe. Certainly never did that going up the hill other than those hairpin turns that I was telling you about, because I have no idea what's coming around the bend. So that's the drive up. Once again, I'll do it again right here. This time that you're seeing on the screen, if you want to skip the drive, you can just skip all that and just jump ahead to the time on the screen, and that will be right when we enter the town of Volcan.
Oh, this looks like a growing operation that's kind of fallen apart. See it? There's this on the road. Oh, wow. Cleaning the ditch.
Wow, look at that topography over there. Okay, here we go. This is the town of Volcan. And you get a little bit more of a warning, as you would have seen on the drive coming up, as you can start to see civilization all of a sudden start to get more and more buildings and things, and then boom, you enter it. For me, the first thing that I noticed, which I thought was awesome, was again, somebody put a ton of money into doing this main drag, because this looks like no other town that we've ever been in anywhere in Panama. And at this point, we have been through a ton of different little towns and cities within Panama, and this was clearly, hands down, the best infrastructure road-wise. Big, wide road, newly paved, lots of parking. That's a rarity.
Including many roads in Panama City, I'll add.
Yes, and what's the big thing? What's the big thing that you see here?
Sidewalks. Woohoo!
Yeah, new flat sidewalks without ditches and weird, things where you're going to fall into
broken grates and God knows what you can trip over or fall into.
Yeah, I mean, Volcan was quite amazing for that, and also the main drag. It's a long main drag. And there's a lot of businesses and restaurants and things on here that are noticeable. It's not like you have to hunt for the restaurants because they're hidden off in the back. A lot of them are right on this main drag. It was really refreshing.
One of the first things I noticed with Volcan was there were a number of big box stores right on the main street. I think the first one was a panaderia, which is a bakery. And then you come across a big pharmacy, and then there are several supermarkets. Romero, there was a Super Baru, and there was an SM Volcan, and who knows, I think there might have been even a couple of others.
Well, those three were right opposite each other, two next to each other, one across the street, and then just a couple blocks away, there was another two or three next to each other.
Lots of big grocery stores, and the other impression I got right off the bat was it had a very nice feel. It didn't feel like all the buildings were as squished together as we've seen in other places.
Yeah, and it actually felt, probably because of the road structure, it actually felt newer. It felt like a newer sort of town. Even though I guess if you really, really look at the buildings, they're not that new, that it was newer. One of the other impressions that I definitely had, we were in Boquete in 2013, so 10 years ago. And this really struck me very much like Boquete was 10 years ago, except that its infrastructure is better than Boquete right now. So they are really way ahead of Boquete 10 years ago, and I would think that they have a good chance of catching up to Boquete, to where Boquete is now, with 60, 70 restaurants, where I'm sure there's not 60, 70 restaurants in Volcan. In other words, it's one of the reasons why people look at Volcan now and want to go there and see it and maybe live there, because real estate, housing, rentals, other things, they're lower priced there than Boquete, and there's not as many expats there, that have made the prices sort of rise. If you're an expat in Boquete, you're going to find a ton of expats there, and when you walk down the street, you're going to hear a lot of English people talking in English. That wouldn't be the case in Volcan. You're going to be one of the outliers if you're an expat, I believe. Not 100% certain, but that was my impression. But it'll only get better for you, as the years progress.
Well, I don't know. I think that's debatable. There are a lot of expats that do videos on Volcan,
For sure.
and they talk about the expat community there. And to be fair, we were only there one day, so we didn't really connect with any expat community there. So we don't want to downgrade it and have people screaming at us in our videos saying, wait a minute, you don't know anything. It's true, we don't know, but what we're only talking about is what we saw being there. So in Boquetes, Panama, as Pat just said, you see expats all the time in the town.
You hear them when they walk by.
Right,
and also
you hear English spoken and so on, but in our experience going through Volcan, we did not see other expats.
Yeah, and one of the things that gives me that impression too is we went to a restaurant where we had lunch. No one there spoke English. There was no English spoken. Even the waiter, young guy, and usually a young person would be able to speak English, He didn't have any English, and which was fine, no problem. We get along and communicate. But there was no English there. We went to get some ice cream on the street. One young girl, she could speak English. The other 3 or 4 people in there couldn't. We went into a grocery store, and nobody there could speak English either. So I just think that, again, it's Boquete 10, 15 years ago.
I think the restaurants are
There's a Mexican grill here.
La Casa.
And as I said, La Brochette is nobody there. La Brochette is up here a little bit farther. Almost there. Somewhere here. Right here. There.
It's a restaurant that said restaurant.
That's so weird. There's no sign. Smokehouse. Pull over. Pull over. Yeah, let's just go here.
The one that we went to for lunch, the big sign I think was just Smokehouse, but it's called Rancho de Boer. And it's basically a big butcher shop. I could see tractor trailers going in there. So it was rather industrial. But then there was almost like a deli counter and also a sitting area outside with a patio. Yeah, there was a little market inside too by the deli. But we went and sat outside and placed an order and had a very nice barbecue lunch, and it was very reasonable.
Very, very.
It was definitely the lower Panama prices, but I had such an experience there that I won't forget, because as I was sitting there eating lunch, this lovely little, I believe it was a golden retriever, golden lab, came walking up to the steps, and this dog sat at the bottom of the steps. What's going on here? Has anybody got something that they want to give me? And I thought, that's interesting. What a polite dog. He's just going to sit there.
And a homeless polite dog. Like, what is that?
Well, I thought, first of all, he was so well behaved that maybe he belonged to somebody. But no, apparently he was just wandering the streets. Then he walked away by the time I had some food to bring him. And I went looking for him. I had like a beef stick that I gave him afterwards because he followed me back. But he was even just as polite around the corner as he was sitting in front of the restaurant. So I thought, wow.
You made a friend for life there. It was really nice.
Oh, he was sweet.
Yeah. We went and walked around a bit, and we got a nice couple ice cream cones. Walked around. Those people were really, really nice. Everybody was very, very friendly. Went into a grocery store. When looking at different things. One of the other things that I did was I was curious, because when you're in Coronado and you get off the main drag, all of a sudden, very quickly you'll get like one paved road, and then there's a whole bunch of dirt roads. And that occurs in a lot of towns, town after town after
And really
town.
rough dirt roads.
Yeah, super rough dirt roads. Yeah, like big ruts. And I thought, okay, well, what's it like here? And so we turned off the main drag, which was like impeccable, brand new, and decided to go, through some of the side roads, off. In other words, the next block over, and the next block over, and the next block over. And most of those were paved. There was a few that were not paved, totally good shape, like not a big deal to drive on them. But the main point being, the brunt of those were paved. So our impression, again, we didn't drive over the entire city, but our impression of Volcan is it is mostly a paved town, which, to me, struck me as pretty darn rare for a small town that size. And, and then we, started to drive out of town.
And then turn left.
I think beside us.
Yeah. I have the semblance of the car now, where the tires are. This road's not bad. This road's actually better than Coronado ones.
Next one's paved. So, up.
Turn left. Wow, those are some interesting looking homes there from the back.
Well, this one's paved quite a ways too.
It's kind of like you're not too far away from a paved one. That's, kind of like they're getting the main roads.
And again, while we were driving off of the main road into residential areas, I couldn't help but notice that the homes there had a decent size of a lot.
Yes.
They were not squished together. They were nicely spaced, and I really got a nice spacious feel to this town.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I really like the town, and we probably would not ever move there and live there, but if circumstances came up where, like another COVID thing, and it wasn't going away, and you wanted to be close to a food supply, and you wanted to have a nice life and all of that stuff, I would for sure be looking at Volcan. I would be looking at Volcan harder than I would be at Boquete, and we really like Boquete simply because it was closer to the food, and it was a really nice town, and nice houses, and yeah, you could clearly have a really nice life there, and plus it was very pretty looking over at the mountains. I mean, they had some gorgeous views there when you look up. It reminded me a lot of being in Alberta, which I'm sure it's probably the same if you're in Colorado and in Idaho, where you're not at the Rockies, but you can see the Rockies and you're looking over. Again, these weren't the Rockies, size, but they still looked really, really pretty. So after that, it's like when you're in Volcan and we kind of did all that, then the next obvious thing was, okay, well, let's go to Cerro Punta and see what that thing looks like. So got on the road to Cerro Punta, and we'll show you that drive, and then we'll pick it back up again. Yeah, at the time on the screen that you see right now, when we entered Cerro Punta.
Stop. But Alto Boquete means what?
High. Up.
Not these though. Not yet anyway.
There's a restaurant there. Man, look at that mountain looks cool. And we're going to be driving right toward it. Is this it?
Yep.
Man.
Oh, that's a
Look at
tall
that.
house.
Yeah, look at that thing. Let's get the show back that thing. It is a tall house. 4 or 5 levels.
With windows in the top to let the sun in.
This
Right.
Yeah. This must be a restaurant here.
But you got to see something.
Yeah. Super agua.
Okay.
Seems like we could have just gone straight right on the
I
main.
know it does. I don't know
on
why
the-
it had
on
a
the main drag.
zigzagging.
Yeah, the
But
main-
you got to see something.
Yeah. Look at this guy.
Did he just park right there on the road?
Yeah.
Oh my god. He didn't even pull over.
He went in for a coffee.
Yeah. Jesus.
Waiting for a coffee and a poster.
Flashing lights.
Good for him. A coffee and a poster.
These are police. Are they police? Why are they flashing their lights?
I don't know.
Oh, that's a bakery. No more hair on my eye.
Here's Fanny's Grill and Pizza. Yeah, baby. Here's another.
Watch where you're going.
Yeah, here's another restaurant.
And one
The,
right here on the right.
Yeah, Carbonara.
The road to Cerro Punta was interesting because it wasn't a continuation of the road going through Volcan. We actually had to go back through town, about halfway through the town. And taking that road, it felt like Volcan just opened up and continued on and on for quite a distance. And when you look at the map, you can see that the town of Volcan does extend out that way along the 418 and around it. So it really also made Volcan feel a lot bigger than Boquete in like the main areas. And I don't know whether we've mentioned yet, but there are also quite a few restaurants that we saw around Volcan, and many along this road going towards Cerro Punta.
Yeah, and it was a very pretty ride because in some parts it's sort of like you're riding through a valley with mountains on both sides, and you're looking at them and going, wow, those are gorgeous. And it was a really nice sunny day, so everything looked spectacular. And it was really nice. And then we got to Cerro Punta.
It's not illegal in case you need to make an argument.
Make it a legal case. I'm just telling you that. That's all. That's all.
Where we just ate?
I said, is it really windy? Is it messed up? And he said, no, it's like a straight road.
I guess it's just slow when you have to go around cars that are stopped in the middle of the road. Versus working vehicles,
Yeah, because if it's
they might let the trucks and taxis speed and nobody else.
actually, you know what this feels like to me? This feels like going up into Woodstock and Saugerties and all outside of Kingston. The roads are good. Everything looks normal. It seems fine. This seems like out in the Catskills.
Why not?
I was, then I turned it off because you know it's so hard to go through road stuff because you know you got to basically drive it again.
But every
Every
time you turn it on, you should say where you are. So we're driving between Volcan and Cerro Punta towards Cerro Punta. Look at that. Hey, it's 40.
It just kicked in on 40.
Yeah, but I could already see her going too fast on the curb with somebody walking. There's some wild horses down there.
This is a road rage kind of behind me.
Well-
You know, and I can't go anywhere. I can't go up to the side.
Just drive the way he would drive. If he wants to pass,
Come on,
that's
bud. Come on.
you can't do that on the curve, honey.
Well, I know that. That's it. I can't.
Ignore him. Road narrows. And curves. First left and then right. Oh, they're just
Look at over there.
I think that's where we're going.
Could be.
Cerro Punta. Okay, we have arrived.
What were your impressions of Cerro Punta itself? You know, driving into it and the town and all of that.
Well, I didn't really get a sense of a town in Cerro Punta. I saw a lot of greenery, although not a lot of trees. There were definitely farms and pastures on both sides of the main highway going in as we were driving in.
Big time. Yeah.
And they were fairly nicely groomed along the highway, but you could definitely see a long ways beyond them. And you're basically along the top of the mountain at that point, aren't you? So it was pretty flat.
Yeah, it was definitely flat, and it was very, you know, it was very, very industrially looking. I mean, there was a lot of greenhouses, farmland of all different sorts of crops. I mean, that's why it's the breadbasket. That particular area is the breadbasket of Panama. It's where all the food comes from. You know, when you see it, you go like, yeah, you're gonna need this amount of land to feed the rest of the country, and probably the rest of Central America. There were like houses and buildings, although a lot of the buildings were work buildings for the farming stuff, but I didn't get a sense of a town there either, and I didn't get any sense of really very much any restaurants really. I'm sure there are probably little places to eat, but you know.
Yeah, there definitely are, but I don't think there was much just right on the main road, because in our drive that we're showing you, we're on the main road.
Yeah.
It's a farming town.
Yeah, you come here, we farm stuff and we make food for everybody, and that's pretty much all that's going on here. That's sort of the impression that I got. It's funny, some stuff seemed incredibly high tech, and then other things were, I remember we drove by this one field, and I'll see if I can do this. Maybe I can. I'll see if I can actually find the video and match it up to what I'm saying here right this moment. There were two guys plowing a field, okay, like digging it up and plowing a field, and the field was huge, and they were doing it by hand. It wasn't like there was an old ox or something or a horse pulling this plow thing, cutting into the dirt, or certainly not a tractor. They're pushing this thing by hand. I'm going, really?
To be fair, I don't know whether they were in the process of tilling the whole field, which was massive.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or if they were just there to dig out a rock. Who knows?
It could be. Well, I mean, we drove by them and then we came back and they were still doing it, and they were down the road a bit. So, I mean, there's no way they could be doing the whole field. One of the things here, and I don't know for sure because we never actually had a chance to talk to anyone, so I could be 100% wrong here. But I had the impression, just from looking at things, that there probably would not be a lot of English spoken here. Although, that being said, if they're business people and they have to sell their stuff and export it to different places, maybe there's actually a lot of English spoken there. But I think by the average person, certainly by the average farm worker, I wouldn't think. I would think it's mainly Spanish. So if you can only speak English, you might have a bit of a problem communicating here.
There did appear to be little roadways and sections that seemed to have some restaurants and different things going on that we might have missed, and the day was getting long and he wanted to sort of head back to Boquete. So I think right at the top there might have been more of a business town area that we didn't actually see. So if anybody has information about that, please put a note underneath in the comments. We'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, we did drive through a little section that looked like it was a very, very small town, like maybe 2 blocks, and it was sort of on a curve. Again, one of the things that we're doing this video, this is our impression, and what we wanted to do, like maybe you, if you are coming to Panama, because a lot of these videos we're doing it assuming that somebody has either just arrived in Panama, knows nothing about it, or is thinking about, going to Panama to live, or to be a snowbird or whatever, and where should I live? That kind of thing. We wanted to go there to get our impressions of Volcan and Cerro Punta because they were things on our list of, did I say it again?
Yes.
Cerro Punta. We wanted to get an impression of, are these things that we want to keep on our list of possible places to live or cross them off? And Cerro Punta, for me, was immediately crossed off after driving around for about an hour there. I was like, yeah, I wouldn't want to live here. However,
double check that.
Like I would mention, Volcan would be fine because I would definitely, in the right situation, want to be pretty close to it. I wouldn't want to be very far away from the food source. That's for sure.
Didn't feel like any stretch of a drive at all. So if
No.
you were living in Volcan, 20 minutes to get up to Cerro Punta is nothing.
I'd be shopping there. I'd be up there once a week for sure. You know, get all your vegetables, fruits, and stuff like that for the coming week. And we're coming to the nice houses. Look at those guys in the fields. That's cool.
Punta, Panama.
My Siri never works.
You got no sound.
Why don't you use yours?
Well, it went to that
When I'm
because.
filming, you know, it's like, doesn't make any sense to.
Okay.
Look at that mountain. Wow, they're doing that manually. They are tilling that land manually. Not even a cow pulling it or a tractor. Whew. It's crazy.
Really? Left where?
Okay, I just want to film.
But they're saying turn left, but I don't want to go down there.
Oddly enough, this is actually not as bad as the road that we go on to go home. Kind of fine. It's bumpier, but the rock's not as bad. Other than this one coming up. Want to do the bridge again or go a different way? I guess there is no other way.
you enjoyed this little tour with us today. We certainly enjoyed going up to explore the areas of Volcan and Cerro Punta. Please do come back and see us again soon.
Yeah, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's a really big deal, as I mentioned so many times. Everybody on YouTube always asks you, they beg you, please subscribe. Yeah, because it's a big deal to YouTube.
It is a big deal. It's
Yeah.
a big deal to us, and it shows us we're doing this for a good reason.
Yeah,
that you
and-
want to see it.
Yeah, and one other thing, because we have a lot of driving videos, we have a lot of other videos that we're in the process of making that could or could not be the same as this one, okay? And what I mean by that is, this one I purposely, just to see if you'd like it or not, I put a lot of the driving on here, where my inclination would be to cut a lot of it out, and just get right to the town. But I thought somebody might want to go for a drive with us, because it's a pretty drive. If you like the drive, put it in the comments and hit the like button up on top, and and we'll continue to do that for all of the driving we had. And of course, the bell, that's a big one for notification of any new video. If we put a new one up, you'll get notified, and then you can come back and watch that thing. One of the drags about some of the driving videos as I'm looking at them is like, oh man, we should have cleaned the windshield off better. I have this big thing there in the middle where the GPS was stuck up there, and it's like took it down and you could see the circle where it was. Although you can see through it, it's not that bad, but it's like, probably should have.
Sorry about that.
Watch the window, but it's not on this one. So that's it for this time. Again, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next video. Until then.
See ya.
Ooh.